been a motorcycle racer my entire life. I come from a family of motorcycle racers.
Not so much scared, but you have to give it all the respect that it is Pikes Peak. You know, it ends at 14,000 feet.
Well, I mean, of course, the danger part of the race affects how we ride. If you end up crashing up here, it's going to be a lot worse than a crash, you know, down on the track. It's just not something that you're going to walk away from.
This year, it's all about the record. I want to beat the overall.
I kept thinking Greg was in front of me.
What do you think happened to Greg Tracy?
I just hope Greg is okay. He's not up here.
Colorado is known for its Rocky Mountains, but none is more famous than Pikes Peak. This National Historic Landmark sits just west of Colorado Springs and climbs over 14,000 feet high. And each summer, dating back to 1916, riders and automobile enthusiasts have been gathering here for one purpose: an all-out race to the summit and the chance to be known as the King of the Mountain. Of course, anytime you deal with great speeds and riders who are chasing world records, great danger comes into play. And nowhere are the stakes higher and the risks greater than at Pikes Peak.
Hey, I'm Reese Millen, driver for Reese Millen Racing. We have 3 cars here this year for Pikes Peak 2011. You know, the reason I've never raced a motorcycle, those guys are just drop dead nuts. You know, I'll run up this hill at 137 miles an hour, the fastest car on the mountain, but I got a roll cage around me. That's security, that's confidence to push the envelope. The guys on the bike, they're literally hanging it out at speeds just shy of what I'm doing up here. To me, that is just insanity.
To truly grasp the full scope of this race, you must first begin to account for all of its unique characteristics. The high altitude takes a huge toll on the riders' bodies, while the hairpin turns and sheer cliff faces present dangers which preoccupy the racers' minds. The simple truth is that over the years, both riders and spectators have been killed at this mountain. Riders at Pikes Peak aren't merely risking losing the race. They're very much putting their lives in jeopardy.
There are a lot of elements involved in this race. That's what's really hard to understand until you ride it.
156 turns, some of the fastest turns are up top. Certainly some of the biggest cliffs are up top. You go into the bottomless pit. It's been said there that if you go off the sides, you'll starve to death before you hit the ground. And I think I was actually hitting about 130 miles an hour before I was sliding it into that corner.
While the race itself is brief, preparation for Pikes Peak begins months ahead of time. In the week leading up to the race, 3 practice sessions are held on the mountain. Each starts at dawn and requires the riders to arrive at the mountain in the middle of the night.
What you have in your head does no justice to what you see. As soon as the sun comes up, 5 a.m., you really get a grasp on the magnitude of the race and what you're about to take on.
Practice sessions allow riders to familiarize themselves with the mountain and let them test just how far they can push both their bikes and themselves.
I learned a lot yesterday in the middle section because I started riding way too hard. Like, I wasn't giving it its just, you know, Pikes Peak, it's just due. That is a guardrail and that is 1,000 feet down, right? And I started riding it like a supermoto bike and crossing over the yellows and not really giving it quite the respect that it deserved, and it just knocked me over right at the end to show me, hey, I should be mindful of that.
8 bikes were registered in the 1205cc motorcycle class for this year's race. 4 were Ducati Multistradas. Greg Tracy is a Hollywood stunt driver, pilot of the 555 bike, and a 6-time Pikes Peak champion.
My goal today was really just what is the fastest I can go here. The last 3 years I've had a little different philosophy. It's really been about just getting the win because of the dangers and how much you have to risk it up here anyways. I've played it a little bit safer. This year it's all about the record. I want to beat the overall.
At 44, Greg is the father of 3 and has been competing at Pikes Peak for the past 15 years. His previous accomplishments here garner him a distinguished respect throughout the week from everyone on the mountain. Greg knows that all eyes will be focused squarely on him in Sunday's race. Teammates with Greg racing for the Spider Grips Ducati team is Alexander Smith, the son of legendary motorcycle racer Malcolm Smith. Alexander will race the number 55 bike. While his background is primarily in off-road racing, running the Multistrada up Pikes Peak was an opportunity he simply could not refuse.
Pikes Peak is a really unique race in the sense that there's nothing really like it in the world. You know, it's got its high speed, street bike style racing, kind of like Isle of Man, but then it's got its dirt sections that are totally different than anything else. So you got to get a bike that works for both, and you got to get a rider that that can do well on both, and that's kind of where the difficulty in the race lies.
In addition to the 2 sponsored team riders, 2 additional Multistradas registered for this year's race. Mark Cernicki, an associate editor at Cycle World magazine, rode a stock Multistrada out from Southern California, added number 50 number plates to the bike, and entered himself into the competition.
I was supposed to write something for the magazine about the Pikes Peak special, and I was reading all this stuff, Greg Tracy, and I was like, you know what, I better go figure out why he's been doing this for so long. And there's the bike that he was riding, so I might as well be riding the same bike.
The last Multistrada in the field, the number 5 bike, belongs to Carlin Dunn, a partner at Ducati Santa Barbara.
It's opened up a lot of opportunity. Definitely, we have fantastic bikes at our disposal, and that's allowed us to come out here and do this. So I've grabbed one of my technicians, told him I'd buy him Happy Meals the whole way out here, and he obliged, and here we are. And Greg kind of took me under his wing and gave me inside notes and told me, hey, look, this is what you're going to have to deal with. This is what you should expect. And it's hard to believe that you had to prepare for all that, but we definitely took that into account when we designed our Multistrada. We decided to go from the base and add what we wanted, what we needed, instead of taking the top bike and kind of deconstructing it. And we came up with a few clever little innovations on our own, and we were pretty proud of that. And so far, it's worked out really well.
4 riders, teammates, friends, all riding the same bike, competing more with the mountain itself than with each other. Race day is Sunday, and it's the time that riders and fans alike have been anticipating all year. At 2 a.m., hundreds of spectators are already camped at the mountain's gate, awaiting entrance, while the riders' teams arrive and begin setting up their camps. The Pikes Peak International Hill Climb hosts several divisions, and while the first race of the day will start at 9 a.m., the 1205 class bikes will be the last to run up the mountain in the afternoon. The riders spend the day with loved ones and their race teams, preparing themselves physically and mentally for what is to come. The 1205 bikes are released up the mountain in 3 separate heats. As the riders approach the start line, the intensity of the impending race is palpable. While the riders focus themselves in the moments leading up to the starting flag, they must temper their aspirations for a record-breaking run with the harsh dangers inherent to Pikes Peak. And then suddenly, after a day filled with waiting, the race to the clouds begins. Carlin and Mark share the first heat with Jeff Grace on the 97 KTM bike, while Alexander and Greg are released minutes later alongside Glenn Cox on the number 13 KTM. The Multistradas rocket off the start line, and all look promising early. Both Greg Tracy and Carlin Dunn post particularly fast early split times, with Alexander and Mark not far behind. However, things can change in an instant in this race, and minutes after the start, Mark Cernicki goes down due to a flat rear tire. A tough way to end an incredible week for the magazine editor. Meanwhile, the other racers continue their top speed ascent to the finish line. Although many aspects of the hill climb have evolved over the years, real-time race coverage still leaves much to be desired. Family, friends, crew members, and fans gather around radios and computer screens, eagerly awaiting updates and results which are somewhat hard to come by. Less than 15 minutes after the starting flag, all of the 1205 class riders are atop the mountain or accounted for, with one very notable exception. Greg Tracy is nowhere to be found. News of Greg's absence at the top of the mountain is broadcast over the radio, and suddenly the entire atmosphere surrounding the race very quickly changes.
Glenn, you're here from Los Alamos, New Mexico on the number 13 KTM. What do you think happened to Greg Tracy?
Well, I just hope Greg is okay. He's not up here, and he left the line ahead of us, so he's off the track somewhere between here and there, and safety should be diligently looking for him right now.
And just as tension and anxiety for Greg's well-being mounts, suddenly there is news that he is indeed okay. Having ran over oil spilled from an incident during an earlier race, Greg lost traction and slid off the road. Miraculously, he happened to lay his bike down away from the spectators who lined the course, and in such a way that he himself was able to walk away from the accident relatively unscathed.
Not a great day for me, great day for Ducati. Super happy for Carlin and for Alexander. You know, that's what I preach. I was going for broke. I did not want to leave this mountain thinking that I didn't put in the amount of effort that everybody else here put in. Bike doesn't look great. I survived. I don't think anything's broken.
Meanwhile, Alexander Smith finished third at this year's Pikes Peak. A great showing and hard-earned win for the entire Spider Grips Ducati team.
Today was kind of an interesting day. We got off the line super late in our class. There's a lot of red flags, but it was good. I mean, the bottom pavement section was super fast. Pavement was hot, really sticky. The dirt, I mean, I've never seen the dirt that good at Pikes Peak. Overall, it was good. And then for next year, I mean, honestly, I don't see that bike beatable up here. That bike is just so unbelievably perfect for this race. I think it's going to be the bike, as Greg said last year, the bike to beat for years to come.
And lastly, Carlin Dunn, the 28-year-old Pikes rookie who towed 2 showroom bikes, and his technician Sam Swain out from California. Carlin shed his underdog status by finishing with a time of 11 minutes, 11 seconds, which was not only good enough to earn him the first place checkered flag, but it also set a new all-time motorcycle course record.
Growing up, you watch the videos. I remember being a little kid, and my dad had Betamax tapes of GP racing, and I'd toss it in, and my heroes, Eddie Lawson, guys like that, they'd have the checkered flag over their shoulder and be savoring victory. And I think that's what we all strive for in racing, you know, just a feeling that of achievement and knowing that we put together the best thing we could have, best package. You know, that's not only me, it's just everyone involved. And yeah, I mean, this is a dream come true.
And while Carlin may have arrived at Pikes Peak flying somewhat below the radar, his remarkable first run on his flat black Ducati Multistrada ensured that all eyes will be focused squarely on him and his record time in years to come. Next year, the last of the course's dirt sections will be paved over. The speeds will be even greater, the times even faster. And riders will again gather from all corners of the world to this historic mountain in the midst of the Colorado Rockies.
Well, this will be my 15th year racing Pikes Peak. You know, it's a pretty magical place. It's like no place I've ever been to anywhere around the world. But I don't know, I'm gonna keep coming back here as long as I can keep running up front.